To the Israeli officer who x-rayed and swabbed our mother's ashes. Even though you looked me in the eye, my peripheral vision was stuck on the machine gun cradled in your colleague's jittery arms next to me. Your questions were like jagged metal soldiers on a conveyor belt, a continuous barrage, the same sharp words coming steadily, marching toward my brother and me. All the supervisors who came, all those young military minds with colorful stripes, trained in war, but with no grasp of our grief, of a Palestinian heart, of a simple desire to return homeward. To you, these were just salt crystals in an engraved wooden box you must run through the x-ray machine twice, swab all around, carry as if a purse, a sack of books. To us, those were our mother's remains from an unholy world that kept her far away from her homeland for 71 years, made her a refugee everywhere she went. You will never know who our mother was. My brother and I would have told you that we were carrying what was left of her because you wouldn't let her living body come back. You wouldn't allow a refugee and her family to return to Nazareth. But after your razor-like interrogation ended and our halting answers were enough, we crossed your checkpoint and continued our journey. We buried her ashes in the Palestine she knew. Our Palestinian mother finally exercised her right of return. Thank you. Thank you. So I've gone 15 minutes already. I'll do a couple more. Okay. So we're going to bring on more. These two next poems are about Gaza. So these are new ones. They're not in the book yet. In this book, obviously. So I wrote this poem in October, right in the beginning of the war, when I learned that Palestinian parents were writing their children's names on their legs so that if they die when a bomb hits the house and everybody's dead and we don't know who's who, that their names would be on their legs and they would be able to identify them. I mean, it's just one of the most horrific. That story just really got to me. So I wrote this poem. It's called Write My Name. Maybe some of you have read it or heard it. It's gone viral. I've never experienced this before in my life. This poem is like all over the world. People are reading it at protests, they're reading it at churches, they're translating it. It's in, people have translated it to Japanese and Turkish and French, and it's just like in 8 languages now. And somebody made a YouTube video of it, and it's overwhelming, and I think it's just hit a nerve. This whole idea, this incredible despair that parents would feel about writing names of their children, right? So, write my name. Write my name on my leg, Mama. Use the black permanent marker with the ink that doesn't bleed if it gets wet, the one that doesn't melt if it's exposed to heat. Write my name on my leg, Mama. Make the lines thick and clear and add your special flourishes so I can take comfort in seeing my mama's handwriting when I go to sleep. Write my name on my leg, Mama, and on the legs of my sisters and brothers. This way we will belong together. This way we will be known as your children. Write my name on my leg, Mama. And please write your name and Baba's name on your legs too, so we will be remembered as a family. Write my name on my leg, Mama. Don't add any numbers, like when I was born or the address of our home. I don't want the world to list me as a number. I have a name, and I'm not a number. Write my name on my leg, Mama. When the bomb hits our house, when the walls crush our skulls and bones, our legs will tell our story, how there was nowhere for us to run. Thank you. So I have felt so much despair and so much grief in the last few months about Gaza. I literally go to sleep thinking about Gaza, and I wake up in the middle of the night thinking, I'm sure many of you feel the same way. This is a poem I just wrote. I haven't even sent it out to publish anywhere. I haven't thought about it, but it's a prose poem which kind of goes on. I don't really usually write like this, but it just came out this way. Of course, I've worked on it a lot too, but and it mentions, as Fatma, when she introduced me, said that I volunteer with a program called We Are Not Numbers, and this is a program with young people. They're about university age, sort of early 20s, late teens, in Gaza, writing in English. So they are, like, I'm the mentor and they're the mentee, right? And I've met many. I mean, what an honor for me, what a privilege to get to know young people from Gaza this way. I don't have family in Gaza. My family's in the West Bank and inside Israel. So it was, for me, what an amazing experience to get to know these young people and what they're thinking and what they're feeling. And of course, they've gone through so many wars, right? 2008, 2009, 2014. And, there's set like 5 or 6 wars. They even say things like, when you ask them, how old are you? They'll say, I'm 4 wars old, or I have a BA in war, I've done 4, and I'm going into my MA in war next. It's like, this has just been normalized in their lives. It is so really disturbing. And one of the young men whom I mentored, his name is Ahmad, and I'm still in touch with him. He sends me voice messages. I got one like 3 days ago from him. And as you know, in the north of Gaza, there's no food coming in. There's no aid. They're like literally being starved. They're absolutely starving. He tells me, it's shocking. It's absolutely shocking what's going on. It was overwhelming, to be honest with you. It's beautiful in a sense, right? But these words are so sad, right? And I guess it kind of raises awareness, I guess. I think often about what is the purpose of poetry? Why do we write poetry? And there are so many things. I'm sure you think about this, Heather. So it's a creative expression, right? Poetry is expression. Poetry tries to communicate a message. And poetry can galvanize people to act. Like in the Arab Spring, we had this poem by the Tunisian poet that was a couple of verses from it were being shouted all ashab yurid, and so we were using poetry from this guy who wrote it in 1920, right? So poetry can encourage people it can push you, it could raise awareness, and I'm happy, I think maybe this poem is doing that. It's people are reading it at city council meetings when they're trying to get a ceasefire resolution, which is amazing to me. I think it just elicits this an empathy, I guess. So I'm happy about that. I'm happy that is happening that way. Situation, yeah, like you're talking about the situation in the West Bank and inside Israel with the Palestinians is terrible. It's not like in Gaza, they're not being invaded yet, which, people say might happen too. But the situation is terrible. The Israeli settlers are they're armed, and so they're able to wreak havoc among Palestinians in the West Bank. And the Israeli soldiers really protect them, pretty much. for what they do. And then the soldiers themselves, they've invaded Jenin, the city of Jenin, a few times, and other refugee camps. And a lot of young people are jailed. These are people who are 12 and 13 years old. They're tortured, and it's really horrendous, really horrendous. And then inside Israel, even though Palestinians inside Israel they're about 20% of the population, so they're citizens, but they're not fully citizens. They're like second-class citizens. There are a lot of rights that they don't have. And they're being, if they say something on Facebook or whatever, they are actually, some of them have been jailed for speaking out. So there's a lot more, the discrimination against them has doubled, tripled, exponentially right now after all of this. And they're scared. They're actually scared in their everyday lives. So then I think you know about Gaza, so I don't need to tell you what's going on there. But so yeah, it's the situation for the Palestinians throughout Palestine now, is really dire in many ways, really dire. Thank you. Yeah, I completely agree with you. And we're working in Alexandria on a ceasefire resolution with our city council. I just did a testimony on Saturday, actually. And I didn't read any poems. And I try really hard to keep my role as Poet Laureate separate from my identity as a Palestinian. But of course, they all know I'm Palestinian, and I'm speaking out as much as I want to. But the idea of bringing out the emotional part is very important. And we're actually meeting with each city council member. We're actually meeting them one-on-one. And we've met with 4 of them already, that we have 7. And I'm always right in the beginning. Rose, she's the historian. She gives a little history in 3 minutes. And then I go next and I talk about personal stuff so that they understand that this is a very emotional, very personal, that this Alexandria residents have this in their history, and, they need to be acknowledged, right? We had, and I'll tell you this, and I won't go on any more about Alexandria, but when Hamas attacked on October 7th, the city council decided to light up City Hall with blue and white lights of the Israeli flag. And they stood in solidarity with Israel this way. And, I was really upset about it, and I wrote to the mayor about it, and they said, well, it was a horrendous, it was a terrorist attack. We wanted to stand with Israel. They kept those lights on for 23 days while Israel was, really, like, they had killed I don't know how many people. So there were many of us. This is how we all coalesced in this new group that we have. And so they finally took down the lights, but only because Veterans Day was coming up and they were putting up red, white, and blue. But we were asking for an acknowledgement of us too, and we've never gotten it. We've never gotten anything like that. And the latest thing they're saying to us, and I know this should not be a political situation here, but the latest thing they're saying to us, what they're saying to us is, we shouldn't be meddling in international affairs. And so we said, well, you're the ones who lit up the city hall with blue and white lights. You started it. So it's been a really difficult situation. But we have all of a sudden, I have felt for years now, I've lived there, I felt really beleaguered. I felt like I was the only one who spoke out or anything by myself. And then all of a sudden we have this coalition. 85 people have come out and they're working with us. Many Jewish Americans, really progressive, really morally minded. We have, black, white, different ethnicities, different faiths. We're all together in this, working for Palestinian rights. And it's been amazing. It's been amazing. Somebody said to me, as a poet, you need to be injecting hope when you're reading and stuff. And I really do feel very despairing about what's happening. I guess the only hope I see is how the world is with us. You know, I mean, the whole world is with us. It's just incredible to me. And, you know, something like 67% of Democrats in the U.S. are for a ceasefire, you know, across the board. Our leaders are not listening, obviously, not at all. And then the whole youth movement, we have these youth who have been mobilized who really are incredible, and the youth are our hope. You know, I think there are some here with us. And I'm just so heartened by that. So to me, these are the hopes. This is the hope I see. This is the hope I see. I mean, till the day I die, I'm not going to stop doing my own activism, but it's so amazing to see. I mean, our coalition is mostly young people. I'm one of the oldest ones there. And it's just so wonderful to see them all. And they're much more, you know, I mean, you could probably tell I'm pretty understated. I speak softly, and, you know, they're like really gung-ho, and they want to, you know, after the city council meeting, they just started chanting, and everybody was freaked out. But so, you know, it's a different way, a different approach, but I gotta respect them and love them and support them. Well, no, not. I mean, obviously. So we have our federal taxes, obviously, from Alexandria, and there's 2.7 million or whatever dollars of the federal taxes go to Israeli military aid. You know, but it's not. But these are federal taxes. These are not Virginia they're not Alexandria taxes. These are federal taxes. So the share of Alexandria residents of the military aid to Israel through our federal taxes is about 2.7 million. And there's 10 something from Virginia as a state, right? You guys know the numbers better than I do. But we do have, Elbit Systems, they're in Arlington. They're not in Alexandria, but they're in Arlington. So they make weapons, or I don't know much about them. So they're in our midst. But no, they don't specifically send money, no. Yeah, I did see something one time about how the police department was asked if they had surplus equipment and that they could send it to Israel. I don't know if they... Yeah, okay. So, I speak out, but, I prefer to read my poetry, and, these are my personal statements. These are my personal poems. So nobody can take that away from me. Nobody can question me. If I do a political speech, then people can question me and they can try to, say I'm wrong or whatever. But if I read my poems, this is me, and so you can't. And so to me, that's one way, I think, of, speaking out. Well, I'll start, but there are a lot of activists in the room, so maybe we can have it be a conversation among all of us. But I think one thing that's paramount now is, to keep talking about Palestine, to keep it as a priority, because it's so easy in this country to just normalize the violence over there. It's like, this is happening over there, and we just can forget about it. And I think it's really, really important to make sure that it's still on everybody's agenda all the time, because this is what they want us to do, is to just forget about it. And then secondly, to educate ourselves, to, know what's going on and know the history, know the context, and help people understand the history and the context. We can't, I don't have to say this in this group, but it didn't all start on October 7th. We have to make sure that people understand that we need to teach them about what's going on. But also, we can't just read the New York Times. We have to read a lot of different things. We have to try to hear voices from there. Because a lot of the news is sanitized. A lot of it goes through Israeli censors. You know that there are no journalists can be in Gaza to report. And so So a lot, either we see it through the young journalists like Martaz, who left, and Bisan, and all these people who are just independently with their phones, making these amazing videos and educating us about what's really going on the ground. And we need to listen to them. We need to know what they're saying, and dig up, watch Democracy Now, like the alternative, media. We need to keep doing that as well. So I think that's really important. But I'm just so amazed about what Michigan did last night. In the primary, they wrote, uncommitted instead of voting for Biden as their primary choice. And the leaders there would have been really happy if 10,000 people did that, because that would have shown to Biden that, we have voices in Michigan, and we can derail your nomination in Michigan. They had over 100,000 people writing uncommitted, which is so amazing. So that's important, though, because this is like an institutional, structural piece that we can work with. That we can actually do something with it. So I think that's really important, and we just need to keep working on not sending this military aid to Israel. I mean, I don't really know how to do that. I write to my Congress people, I write to my senators, I call the White House. I mean, I don't really know what else to do. But this, sending billions and billions of dollars to Israel in military aid as they slaughter the Gazans, I mean, it's just unconscionable. What can we do with that? Maybe. So let me throw this out to the audience so people,
And that every single day, multiple people come in, and that these would be people that are within the wellness community, and they have no idea what the Palestinian flag is. And they keep getting asked, like, what's this? What is this? Is this Trinidad? Like, or is this some, they don't know what it is. So we have to realize that, while we are seeing the echo chamber that we're in, that AI has created for us, and the algorithm has created this echo chamber, right? So it's like, the things that are being shown to us are being bounced back to us based on what we're looking at, and not necessarily, I have almost 7,000 followers. My stuff is only shown to 300 to 400 people, and those are only people who are already seeking out Palestinian content. So if you can, set a reminder in your phone, set an alarm in your phone every day, DM the content that you're seeing directly to somebody you want to see it, or text it to them, or email it to them. Email it to your church, email it to the school board of your children, send it to anybody that you can safely send this to, because thinking that it's been 5 months of a genocide and everybody must know because I'm seeing 14,000 dead kids is not necessarily accurate. And one of the most important things that we can do to get more people doing the actions that we're already taking is to put the information and the images in their hands and not assume that they're seeing it. So I would start with that.
Educating, and so that we can actually, do general strikes and actually know what there is to strike, and as far as boycotting and stuff like that. But I think if we make connections about other colonized people or colonized groups, then how all that affects even what we go through, locally and stuff like that. And yeah, that's it.
We're stronger together. So when we start to make these connections with everyone is from all these different backgrounds and different historically oppressed groups are seeing, if we come together as a united group, we're much, much harder to ignore.
My Palestine work was completely separate. I almost had two identities. And now, with what's happening in Gaza, all of a sudden, my group with the Latino community, with the African American community, all of them are supporting me.
Right.
Because of all my work with them for years. And so I think we need to be doing more of that,
Yes.
locally. I really do. It has been a huge lesson for me. And I already knew the city council from all that other work. I mean, they knew I was a Palestinian American because I'm introduced that way when I read poems and stuff, but I have not had to talk to them about Palestine before.
Right.
And all of a sudden, it's all kind of coming together, but it's been it's a very powerful thing. So I think we need to work on all those levels as well. I think that's really important.
My group is Richmonders for Peace in Israel, Palestine, and we've been doing this for, since then. We have films, we have speakers, we have different kinds of events. We even had kind of a museum kind of event at one point. And we work mostly through churches. And I just met another pastor Monday night, talked to her today, and maybe we'll have something at her church. And I think going around to some of the churches and some of those groups and educating them on what's going on is what we do. That's what the local group does anyway. And we're going to have an iftar, an interfaith iftar.
That's nice.
I pray on March 16th at a to-be-named church. It will be named hopefully tomorrow. They're giving me a hard time. I mean, it's taking a long time, let's put it that way. But, get on my mailing list. Actually, if you go on Facebook, you can connect to me that way. It's Richmonders for Peace in Israel, Palestine, unless you already have my email. Just send me a message there, and we'll get you on our mailing list. And we will be posting. We post there, but I also have an email list of people who want to know about these events. We're always looking for help. I'm going to invite Zeina down again to do something in one of these churches or have something of that nature too. And then, in addition to that local group, we have the statewide group. The statewide group does the advocacy in the General Assembly and Congress, and then we work with other groups such as Jewish Voice for Peace and AMP and so on. And then this lovely local group here, the City Council group, now we're starting to work on the local level. So it is definitely growing.
Thinking about the world is informed, as is true for a lot of people, by the work of Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
And especially the King that calls for a revolution. So, for example, in his sermon Beyond Vietnam, and one of the really valuable things I think that he talks about, at least in that sermon, right, he's condemning what he calls the genocidal war being waged by the United States against the people of Vietnam. And he says, it's terrible for all these different reasons. They're seeking liberation, and we should be on their side, as we should be on the side of all groups fighting for liberation around the world. He critiques colonialism and so on and so forth. And then he moves to this, he even says, I'm going to move to a deeper analysis. And he says, the problem here is that we're not getting to the underlying structures that benefit from waging these wars all over the world. And if we don't do something about those, and right now we know, right, the weapons manufacturers are so happy about what's happening not only in Palestine, but also in Ukraine and wherever else. I mean, they make a lot of money from all of this. That unless we address that, and he even says, then we will find ourselves having to gather again and again and again and again. And then he names like different countries around the world where U.S. imperialism is at work, if we don't do something about that. So I bring that up because I think, we have to do all we can to stop the violence in Palestine, and in the Congo, and in Sudan, and in Ethiopia, and in Richmond, Virginia. And these are all connected to each other by having in my view, an economic system that puts profit ahead of people, puts meeting the needs of the few or the greed of the few above and at the expense of the interests of the many. Anyway, so I just think all that's important to keep in mind, and that's where you have to get labor involved to really see that they are being losing out by having all this money devoted to war and destruction and not to meeting the needs of all of us. I mean, again, it's a bigger framework, but I think it's valuable to keep that in mind too, so that we can see the bigger picture of what connects us around the world in that project.
Baba ganoush, lemony grape leaves stuffed with rice and meat. Our culture is larger than the life of the chickpea from sprout to table or the time it takes to eat a bowl of minted yogurt, rolled cabbage with garlic cloves, stuffed baby squash. Mujaddara with caramelized onions is beyond the pale now. Let's not talk about eggplants and pine nuts or ground pistachios ornamenting baklava and sweet syrup, orange blossom water and lemonade, cardamom-infused coffee. And should we mention the special foods served when a baby is born? A tooth appears, someone dies, the moon a thin crescent at the start of Ramadan, Easter's arrival. A baklava backlash is unfolding, and I am starved for metaphors.